Happy Halloween! It's the spooky season again, so what better way to celebrate than making a Lego graveyard mock? Well, of course we can celebrate by eating absurd amounts of candy, but we can also build Legos. And subscribe, because that would also be a great way to celebrate. So the first thing I did when building this graveyard was make a base plate out of dark gray platforms and then use brown platforms to create 3 4x6 areas where the graves would be. The next step was to surround the outside of the graves with brown brick pieces for the dirt under the ground. I'm making these graves lower down than the rest of the mock so that I can actually put minifigures in them. After I was done filling in the lower ground around the graves with bricks, I began working on the first grave, which I planned to make tall and fancy. I used a 1x1 dark gray platform piece and put it in a 1x2 dark gray brick to add a nice detail to the front of the grave. I then added a bunch of slope pieces to the top of the grave and left the top studded because I think tiling it off would look pretty weird. The next step of the build was to cover the ground in patches of grass along with exposed dirt from lots of grave diggings. I added some dirt piling up against the large grave and then put 1x1 brown bricks and 1x2 brown slopes inside of the other 2 graves. Next I started working on one of the gravestones. I used a 4x6 dark gray plate and surrounded the outside of it with smooth tiles but left the middle studded so that I could add these 4 handlebar pieces for detailing. I liked the way this looked, so I decided to put it on top of one of the graves, and then I began working on the second gravestone, which I decided to make shattered to pieces because the skeleton inside it had realized it's Halloween and it's time to eat some poor innocent people. Then I added a poor innocent man lying on the ground who was foolishly digging a grave on Halloween and made him knocked out and leaning on the grave. Just kidding, he's not knocked out, he's actually dead because I decided on putting some 1x1 translucent red pieces on him for blood. Poor guy. I'm also adding a skeleton walking away from him in the direction of a sheriff who was called by the gravedigger right before he died. The sheriff is clearly terrified, so it makes sense that I should add an old skinny tree with just a few leaves to make the scene even spookier for the sheriff. The build is now looking really good, but unfortunately the sheriff is too scared to stick around, so he left. Since the sheriff left, the skeletons decided to put the gravedigger they had just killed in a grave, and they also decided to get back into their graves themselves so that they could jump scare the next poor innocent victim who came along. When the sheriff got back with backup, more like bad up, he saw that the graveyard was deserted. Just kidding, the skeleton's right behind them. Alright guys, if you liked this video because it was spooky, here's another spooky one I made, and it's a horror Jurassic World mock, so go check that out. Also make sure to like and subscribe, have a marvelous rest of your day, and have a happy Halloween.